at the thromboses. One of them was 59, and I know that the risk benefits were and the risks were all greater than 50, but any consideration of age 60?
This is Sarah. I think the work group, we tried to look at what was known with the current age distribution. We had to make some assumptions when we started doing this work a couple of days ago. And so the work was done with the 50-year-old cutoff. I think we did look at information. So the work group saw more slides and more information than what was presented publicly today. There was some information presented for 65 and older, so not 60, but 65. Ultimately, the issue is the population 65 and older that's remaining to be vaccinated is very small, or is much smaller than the 50 to 64-year-old population. And so some of that definitely impacts the modeling results when it comes to that. But we did not specifically look at a risk-benefit analysis with the line drawn at age 60 years.
Because when we, the data as of April 14th, among the cases, the range was 18 to 59. And I know that it's, it's just some cases, but because, I fully understand the benefits of immunization. We cannot argue with that. But I also understand the risk, and the risk is not it's not an insignificant risk. It makes me nervous. And I think that that at least with this vaccine, yes, there's only one male during the trial that had it, so it doesn't seem to be zero in men, although yes, quite rare, or quite infrequent. And I just, I think that the choice, as one of them, as the number 4 is worded, it sounds almost like the choice should only be given to women and not to everyone. And so I'm a little bit hesitant about that one as well. But I'm not sure if 50 is the age that I would use.
Thank you. Dr. Paling. Dr. Paling? We'll come back to Dr. Oh,
thank you.
Go ahead.
I'm here. Thank you. Ms. McNally shared her thought process of how she was thinking about this and put it into context and asked for a response. I wanted to respond and affirm that I am thinking along the same lines and appreciate her adding clarity to this thought process. I also wanted to say thank you for getting the exact wording for the public, because that is a very important part of the consideration for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hayes.
I apologize. I forgot to take my hand down.
Thank you. Dr. Holly? Dr. Howell?
Oh, hi. Thanks. Molly Howell, representing the Association of Immunization Managers. I just wanted to say that yesterday we surveyed our members, who are the 64 awardees implementing the COVID vaccination programs in the United States, and 81% were supportive of, I would say, either option 2 or option 4. So I just wanted to share with that, and that we will work with either. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Stinchfield.
Yes, thank you, Patsy Stinchfield, representing NAPNAP. Personal thoughts here from the state of Minnesota that is seeing all the variants and increasing numbers, and as we speak are accepting young adults into our children's hospitals because of very high census across the state with the disease. So What makes me nervous is the climbing incidence of COVID. I have an urgency to move on this, what our former option 2, which I think we'll now call the top box. I would support that. And I think because it's most reflective of the data that we've seen today and the conversation, I think it is will have the least unintended consequences for those who are reading it. And I do think in a hospital that's given 20,000 doses so far, 2 products, it is very doable to have 2 different products. For example, our Johnson & Johnson, we've been very happy to give to 18 and over young autistic males who are combative. They're under a sedated procedure and it's worked out really, really well. An already planned procedure, we co-administer that vaccine with very happy families at the end. I think, we can do these on different days, different sites, different locations. So that implementation, I don't have any concerns about that. I do think that in terms of vaccine hesitancy, yes, I think this pause has made people nervous, but I think in the end, time will tell. But because of the excellent work, and Dr. Oliver, what a masterclass you gave us today, this will help increase the confidence in the United States and across the world. And I'll just end by saying that I do have a considerable concern about our global problems right now, looking at India and Brazil, and the urgency, again, not only in the US, but across the world, to use all the tools that we have to get the pandemic behind us. So I feel very comfortable in that top phraseology with the details in the EUA. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Whitley Williams.
Yes, thank you. Pat Whitley Williams, representing the National Medical Association. And I also thank you, Dr. Oliver, and your group for just outstanding presentations. Our preliminary considerations would be supportive of reaffirming the recommendation for use of this vaccine. It's well recognized that persons in the Black and Brown community have been disproportionately affected by this pandemic. So the benefit of a vaccine that is effective far outweighs the risk, and especially in hard to reach vulnerable populations. And I also concur with what Patsy Stinchfield just said in terms of the global impact. But also would encourage, and I know this is work that's ongoing, to really try and get to the bottom of this underlying cause of the TTS, and particularly as it relates to age group, gender, and race ethnicity. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Arthur.
Thank you. Phyllis Arthur on behalf of BIO. I actually just wanted to suggest that whatever the decision the ACIP voting members make, this is an excellent opportunity to recommit to getting all the vaccinees to use BSafe. We think this is an extremely important tool for helping people pay attention to their side effects, report them, and gather the really important data on vaccine safety that's so important to our overall efforts. We've had many reports of people not being told about BSafe when they get vaccinated, although other places are doing a great job. And this is an opportunity, given any need to change the daily information people get in the text, to actually encourage more and more citizens to enroll and fill it out. So just wanted to put a word in for, as we look at BSafe, having another wave of encouraging people to use it.
Thank you. Dr. Bernstein, I'm going to skip you because you've already spoken. I don't think we've heard from Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen, and then I'll come back to Dr. Bernstein.
Yes, thank you. And so I've been really enjoying the discussion, and I think I agree with what Dr. Shah initially kind of articulated, which is that in essence, box top and box bottom are not significantly different from each other, as long as we understand that in the implementation that we would not have a formal complicated consent process for the be aware or making aware statement, and then for the ability to choose, that we would not make it a requirement for the local point of immunization clinic to be required to store 2 or more vaccines. So I think that as long as I understood that correctly, there really isn't that large distinction between the top and the bottom box. And so I do wonder if that bottom box, having not much of a real distinction, has more of a risk for misinterpretation from local kind of smaller implementation teams and programs. I think we heard from other large programs that they have no problem with juggling, 2 or 3 vaccines simultaneously on any single day. But I do wonder about these smaller outfits. Again, in my state of Maryland, we have, individual medical practitioners and pharmacists, dentists, and veterinarians that are starting to be trained to be able to implement these vaccines. And again, I can't imagine that they will be able to juggle multiple products simultaneously. So I think that, again, as long as we saw that enhanced labeling information, and we have an aggressive campaign for educating the public and the medical community, I think in essence, those boxes are not really different from each other. And to make it simpler, that top box is really what I favor. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dr. Lett.
Yes, hi, this is Susan Lett from CSTE. We're wondering if you could tell us a little more about implementation, will happen, because this is we've never sort of had this pause before, and sort of sequentially, can you describe it?
Dr. Lett, you're asking us to describe the pause? Oh, the implementation of if the pause is lifted?
Yep. Yes, there have been some questions amongst our members and other members that we've been talking with about how exactly things would get re-implemented. As soon as we have to wait for certain language to be available, for materials to be available, I don't know about screening forms and standing orders. We're just trying to understand how that would happen.
Dr. Lett, this is Amanda. So if there is a decision in the next half hour, hint, hint, sorry, then we are awaiting and anticipate that the FDA will be putting out newly approved EUA language, which we've pulled up for you to see now, the language which we can have the company take us through that's in the patient FAQ sheet. And at that time, if the CDC director approves the decision made by CDC, we would publish that on the ACIP website and through other information sharing, and people would be allowed to presume use of doses that they have available potentially already. That being said, immediately over the next 72 to 96 hours, so Monday, there's going to be another COCA call that describes all of this information. There will be an MMWR that shares all of this information. And additionally, we will be taking the input from today along with this language that FDA will publish, and both FDA and CDC will have communication materials and education materials, including infographics, patient fact sheets that are smaller and focused just on this issue, and those will be available early next week.
Do you want to walk through this, and then I'll take the final questions that are here. So go ahead.
Yeah, so
go ahead, J&J.
This is Dr. Oliver.
Yeah.
We just got the recipient fact sheet. So if somebody from J&J wants to walk us through that.
Yeah, certainly. This is Dr. Waldstreicher. So this is the recipient fact sheet, and this is the section that's on the risks of the Janssen COVID vaccine. Prior to this, it first describes the side effects reported, like injection site reactions and general side effects. Then it talks about anaphylaxis and gives the symptoms of those. And then you're seeing the section there highlighted in yellow, where it talks about this new thrombosis with thrombocytopenia, but in language appropriate language for this fact sheet. So it talks about blood clots involving blood vessels in the brain, et cetera, goes through those. It talks about it's occurred in some people who have received the vaccine. And in people who have developed these clots, I'm not going to read the whole thing word for word, but it talks about the fact that they develop approximately 1 to 2 weeks following vaccination, and that most people who develop these blood clots and low level of platelets were females ages 18 through 49 years. The chances of having this occur is remote, and you should seek medical attention right away if you have any of the following symptoms, and then it gives the list of symptoms. This is consistent with professional society guidance as well. And that's the end of that section.
Thank you.
Dr. Romero, may I ask a follow-up question?
Go ahead, please.
Does this fact sheet indicate that there is an alternative, that being the mRNA vaccine?
Can someone,
what the fact sheet shows, and it's actually later on down there, it says other vaccines to prevent COVID-19 may be available under emergency use authorization. It's probably there if you scroll down. Under Janssen COVID, the question is, are other choices available for preventing COVID-19 vaccine? It's up a little bit, I'm sorry. Are other choices? Oh. There it is, okay. Are other choices available for preventing COVID-19 besides Janssen COVID vaccine? Currently, there is no FDA-approved alternative vaccine available for prevention of COVID-19. Other vaccines to prevent COVID-19 may be available under emergency use authorization.
And this is Amanda. I'll just add that in the CDC educational materials, we will describe all options available, and we're able to speak about all of the products as opposed to the EUAs, which have to focus on the individual product that it's authorized for.
Thank you. The information is very helpful.
Dr. Romero, this is Dr. Bell. Can I just ask one follow-up question before we head on to the other people with questions?
Of course, Dr. Bell.
Thank you. So this EUA fact sheet is given to patients when they're getting ready to have a shot. Is that correct? In other words, they're in the clinic, they're about to get a shot, and it's the Janssen vaccine, and so they get this piece of paper. Is that how these EUA fact sheets are used?
Does someone from the company or FDA want to respond to that?
Yes, generally, this is how the fact sheet is used. And we also post it on the website, and I believe that it's posted on other websites as well, such as that would accompany the vaccine.
I will tell you in practice that there are that sometimes you receive this information through your appointment. You receive an email with the PDFs of this information as well, but it should be given at some point between when you make an appointment and you get vaccinated.
Thanks.
Sorry, I lost my list of speakers here. Let me go back to Dr. Bernstein, then Dr. Paline, and then I'm going to close it unless somebody has some very pressing comments. Dr. Bernstein.
Thanks, Dr. Romero. It's incredibly impressive to me how well our nation's vaccine safety surveillance systems work. The Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, VAERS, which is not designed to assess causality, identified a safety signal of real concern, prompting further investigation. As Drs. Oliver, Bell, and the COVID-19 work group have presented, the ACIP closely examines disease epidemiology, vaccine supply, implementation concerns, public values and acceptance, and equity. Its three overarching pillars of science, implementation, and equity are important. After our emergency meeting last week, I felt implementation and equity favored reinstituting the J&J vaccine, but the science was much less clear to me. The brief pause, measured in days, appropriately continued to allow additional data to be collected and analyzed. The ACIP process works in a timely and transparent way, which should improve the public's understanding of this safety signal. Today's presentations and discussions have convinced me that lifting the pause on J&J's vaccine is in the best public health interest of the US population. Any vaccine may have side effects, and in this case, the risk of blood clots and low platelets, even resulting in fatality in some, has now been extensively studied and will continue to be monitored. Plus, patient education and provider recognition are expected to help improve outcomes. Important information also will now be conveyed in the FDA's EUA fact sheet, the CDC's materials, and through local public health officials. The 3 COVID-19 vaccines currently authorized in the US are amazingly safe and effective. In my mind, their benefits far outweigh identified or perceived risks. We need as many people to be vaccinated as possible in order to reach community immunity and put the pandemic behind us. The J&J vaccine will help us do just that. So I prefer the option 2 or the top box, and I think that we can include nuanced language in our clinical considerations that often accompany these recommendations. Thank you.
Dr. Paling.
Can we pull up the FDA EUA sheet again, the bolded part? I wanted to look at that. And in particular, my question on that for the component to the, I was looking at the one for patients in the public. And in that yellow component, my question, I just wanted to highlight that headaches are the most common early symptom of these thrombosis and thrombocytopenia. And so I am concerned that that is buried. I think it was the 5th one down. And I hope on the CDC website, we could elevate that location. And I'm happy, I would appreciate input from the FDA and the thought process of ordering. Thank you.
Go ahead.
This is Amanda. We will take that into account as we're developing our CDC materials. That's a great point. I also want to comment on something that Dr. Talbot said much earlier regarding emergency room and understanding the risk of clots, especially in this age group of women. And one of the key things that we have been communicating and we will continue to communicate in our provider education is that one of the first things that a provider should do is check a platelet count, and that should inform treatment and management. And so we are very grateful to our colleagues at ASH and other colleagues who have supported information around the clinical management to ensure that patients are treated, that this is recognized and treated appropriately early.
So before we move on to a motion, I think we're ready to discuss this. I just want to say the following. While I can vote for number 2, I think we've already begun to see in the discussion that there is a bit of selective interpretation of that recommendation. Women are not going to be offered at that site across the country an option to a second vaccine. And that's going to place certain women at a disadvantage that may decide that the vaccine being offered at that site is not the one for them. And they're going to have to shop for a vaccine. So that is an issue. I just want to point that out. But as I said, I think I can live with number 1. because it does reinstate the Janssen vaccine, which I think is essential to our vaccine efforts. So I think at this point, we'll end discussion and see if anybody wishes to make a motion. Voting members, sorry. Dr. Lee.
So I move that we recommend the Janssen COVID-19 vaccine is recommended for persons 18 years of age and older in the U.S. population under the FDA's emergency use authorization period.
The top box to clarify, Dr. Lee.
The top box, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
May I have a second, please? Dr. Alt?
This is Kevin Alt. I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Is there any further discussion from the voting members only? Let me see here. Dr. Sanchez?
Is it possible to vote between the two?
Say that again. Say that again.
Is it possible to vote one versus the other?
Dr. Sanchez, so for procedurally, the motion that has been made now needs to be voted on, yes or no in and of itself. If this motion passes, this motion carries. If this motion does not pass, we can put another motion on the table.
Is that clear, Dr. Sanchez? We have to vote on this motion at this time.
Okay.
Thank you. Dr. Long.
I will not comment further on this motion.
Thank you. Dr. Bernstein. Dr. Bernstein, your hand is up.
I meant to take it down.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask that all the voting members please turn their videos on and get ready to offer a vote. All right.
So I just want to remind our members, we are still not doing really electronic voting, but as you go through your votes, please let everyone know again if you have any conflicts of interest. I believe there are a couple of members who will be abstaining from the vote due to being involved in clinical trials with COVID vaccines. So please indicate that. Additionally, at the end, after the vote, we will have an opportunity for those of you who would like to share and explain your yes or no vote. So we will have the opportunity to do that after we go through the members. So Dr. Romero?
Thank you. So the motion to be voted upon is the Janssen COVID-19 vaccine is recommended for persons 18 years of age and older in the U.S. population under the FDA's emergency use authorization. So I'll begin. Dr. Alt.
Alt, yes, no conflict.
Dr. Bata. Sorry, Ms. Bata.
Bata, yes, no conflict.
Dr. Bell.
Excuse me, yes, no conflict.
Dr. Bernstein.
Frank Bernstein, yes, no conflict.
Dr. Chen.
Chen, yes, no conflicts.
Dr. Daly.
Daly, yes, no conflicts.
Dr. Fry.
Fry, abstain due to conflicts with clinical trials.
Thank you. Dr. Cotton.
Cotton, yes, no conflict.
Dr. Lee.
Lee, yes, no conflicts.
Dr. Long.
No, no conflict.
Ms. McNally.
No, no conflict.
Dr. Paling,
Paling, yes, no conflict.
Dr. Sanchez,
Sanchez, no, no comment.
Dr. Talbot,
Talbot, no, and no conflict.
Romero, yes, no conflicts. Thank you, Dr. Cohn. So the vote is 10 in favor, 4 opposed, and 1 abstention. The motion carries. The Janssen COVID vaccine is recommended for persons 18 years of age and older in the U.S. population under the FDA's emergency use authorization. Thank you all very much. So are there any of the voting members that wish to offer comment at this time?
Please raise your hand.
Is Dr. Bell, Dr. Bell? You can stop sharing now if you
Yes,
wish.
thank you. I wanted to reiterate a theme, which is the importance of CDC and the state and local health departments and the partner organizations providing clear communication and education on this topic. I voted yes, I can live with this recommendation, but I think that under an emergency use authorization, where there is no signed informed consent, that it could be that ACIP recommendations might need to reflect some more nuanced concerns than under the usual procedure. Nonetheless, as I say, I voted yes, but I am concerned that that the consumers and women in this age group in particular will not be adequately informed just by the FDA EUA fact sheets. And so we really are depending on the public health agencies and the partner organizations to make sure that people actually are informed and are empowered and that they actually get a balanced perspective.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. Dr. Alt.
I was going to agree with Dr. Bell. I was thinking the very
Thank
same.
you. Dr. Sanchez.
I agree with Dr. Bell, and actually that is precisely the reason that I voted no. I have no problem with the continued availability of this vaccine. I think if someone makes a informed consent after having and knowing the risks involved, I'm fine, let them get it. But I think that we just making a blanket recommendation, knowing the risks that seem to have biologic plausibility and severity, I think we have to have a stronger language and make sure that people are informed appropriately.
Thank you, Dr. Palin.
Thank you.